In this presentation, we're going to put together a comparative balance sheet. Let's zoom into it with Xero. Here we are in Xero. We're going to be opening up our standard balance sheet and then adjusting it to make a comparative balance sheet. So let's do that. We're going to be opening up the accounting tab. I'm going to go back down to the balance sheet down below. Once that opens, I'm going to duplicate the tab by right-clicking on the tab up top. We're going to be duplicating the tab up top. That's going to create a balance sheet tab. Now I'm actually going to duplicate it again, and that'll allow me to see the standard balance sheet and then go back to the one I'm going to be manipulating and changing. So I'm going to right click on the balance sheet again, duplicate it, and then I can always think about, okay, this is the one I'm going to be adjusting, and then here's the one that, is the standard balance sheet. So I'm going to basically adjust the one to the left and then keep the one to the right standard. So if I have, any questions on what it looked like before I mess it all up, I'll go back there. Now remember, as you do this, that it's not going to save the changes over the standard balance sheet. You can memorize the report, and we'll talk about how to memorize a report later. But for now, just note that it's you can do this, and you don't have to be fearful that you're going to kind of mess up the whole report, and you're never going to be able to open up a normal balance sheet again because you killed it, right? So just realize that. So we're going to go down and consider our objective. So we have our balance sheet. What I'd like to do, what I'm imagining here, is that we want to have two periods. One period like a year end or a month end versus another period. So in this case, December 31st, possibly 2019 versus 2018 maybe, or 2020 versus 2019. Or we can have a month by month, December versus November. And then I'd like to see the difference between those two columns, a change between the two. What's the difference between them for those 2 points in time? And then possibly a percentage change, a horizontal type of analysis. So that's kind of what I'm imagining that we're going to see. Let's see if we can do this step by step. First, I need 2 columns here. So to do that, I'm going to go back up top, and I'm going to go to the report settings. Now I'm at the 2019. That's what the default is right now. I'm going to remove the decimals. I'm just going to get rid of the decimals altogether. And then I'm going to say, hey, I want to just see the previous time period, see what it gives me. Then I'm going to update this and go back down and say, all right, let's see what happens here. Now it took it from 2019, the current year first. That's often the case. That's kind of like the default that mainly most reports are going to be filtered that way. You want the most current year actually first because that's the most relevant data, and then the second year is after that. So that's what we have here. So we've got that. That looks good. Notice it took the year. Why did it take the year and not like last month? Because we have up top it's at end of the last fiscal year, right? So if we were to change that, then I could change that and be able to do a month-by-month comparison and so on and so forth, given the change if it's going to be the year or not. For example, let's say the last month. So I'm going to change this to last month and then update this. And then if I go down below, now we've got December 2019 compared to November 2019. So now we're doing a month-by-month comparison. So let's keep it at that. I'm going to do a month-by-month comparison. Then I would like to see another column over here. I'm imagining here now a difference column. I would like to take December minus November. So let's see if we could do that in the layout items down here. This seems a little bit more complicated if you're comparing this to QuickBooks, but it's really not that bad. Again, if you look at QuickBooks on how these comparisons are, you can click a button to do it, but you don't have quite as much of the customization. And here it's pretty straightforward once you do it a few times as well. So this is what I have here. I got these 2 columns. I'm just going to say, hey, I'd like to see another column here. So I'm going to add another column. So give me another column, please. So here's going to be the column, and I want a formula in the column. So a formula in the column. And so then within the column, I can then check in this formula. This is going to be for the full column now. So I'm going to enter this formula that's going to be applied all the way out through all the rows within the column. So I'm going to say, all right, I want to have the formula, please, to be taking 2019 minus, I'm just selecting this drop down, minus the December 2019 minus November. So I want the December minus November. And I use the keyboard to do that, but you could probably use, these functions to have those items. That's going to be the basic. Now I'm going to change this down here to the column name. I'm just going to call it the change or the difference, we might want to call it. And then if I was to say done and see what happens to the report, then you can scroll down and there's your change. So that's nice, right? So now we've got our difference or our change, whatever we want to call it. So it took the 11773 minus the 10664 equals that difference of, and it rounded it. So there's rounding because there's actually pennies here. So 11109 or 10, right? So there's the change. So now I'd like to see the percentage change, which is going to be this column divided by the prior month, which is going to be November. So I want to say the percentage change. This is going to be useful for us to do comparisons to like, other companies. Possibly the percentage change is going to be useful for that. So we could say, like for the 1110 divided by now the prior month. That's how you do the percentage change, and that's going to be in this case the 10664. And then I move the decimal 2 places over. I would expect it to be 10.4, right? I'm going to do that all the way down. So how would we do that? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We could do the same thing. I'm going to go to the layout, and then we're going to add another column again. So I'm going to add a column. I'm going to add a formula this time. Again, not this time. It's the same thing. And it's going to take the difference or the change, and then I'm going to divide that by, and then I want to divide it by the prior month, which is November. So take the prior month. And then I want to show it or display it this time as a percentage. And I'm simply going to call it the percentage change. Percentage change. And this might be called like a horizontal analysis type of report as opposed to a vertical analysis. We're doing a percentage change comparison period over period in a kind of horizontal type of fashion, going from left to right, as opposed to like a vertical percentage, like a percentage of total assets type of calculations. So there we have that. And so now we can go to any other, and there's our 10%, right? So we took our difference, which is the 1110 divided by the prior period, which was 10664. It moved the decimal over. It's about 10%. So that's pretty nice kind of settings you can have. Also, just note that these headers right here are something that you weren't typically able to change in QuickBooks. These headers on the subheaders. If you go into the edit field here, you can actually change those subheadings, even the ones that are default. We saw that we actually were able to put in this heading. You could go into there and actually change it. If you didn't want it to say December 31st, if you want to just say period 1 or period 2, you can change that header, and you could change these headers, which again is more customization than typically QuickBooks has a kind of a default change and percentage change kind of thing. So you have a little bit more flexibility there. Where you don't have flexibility here, where you do have flexibility in QuickBooks, as far as I can see, is not being able to change this subheader. So for some reason, because I'm assuming, I bet you that the reason is because this is basically tied to the basic report, the date, and therefore, for whatever, so you can't change that. That's the one thing that you can't change, which typically you can change in QuickBooks. But this is something that's really easy to change if you export it to Excel too. So either format you can export to Excel, and you can do some more kind of refining. You'd like to get this report as customized as possible so that you don't want to have to be exporting to Excel. That's the point. So this customization over here is really is really nice. You can do some more of that more customization in terms of the titling and whatnot. So then I'm going to go back. I'm going to say that is done. Now you can also compare, adjust the title up top, and I might just call this a comparative balance sheet, something like that. And there we have it. So this is going to be a horizontal type of analysis. Again, you may want to save this report once it goes in place. It's not going to overwrite the balance sheet unless you basically force it to, right? You still have this as your standard report, the default report. But then you could save this report, and it'll be able to populate whenever you need it in a similar kind of fashion. Now, I'm going to go through our standard process of thinking about, okay, how would we get this report and then give it to somebody else? So I'm going to go through the process of basically saving this as a PDF file, and then also putting it into an Excel file, and we're going to combine any kind of balance sheet reports we put together, and then imagine that we're going to give those reports to somebody else at the end of the day. So we're going to be putting these together. I'm going to save it, and then we'll save it in a couple different ways. So I'm going to go to the export item here. We're going to export as a PDF. So notice Xero really kind of defaults to this notion that instead of sending something directly to the printer, it has this idea that we're just always going to send it to the PDF, and then if you want to print it from the PDF, you can do so. And I kind of like that, because I can then take this document right here and drag it over. I don't even have to open it as a PDF in that format. And then if I do want to print it, again, I can print it from the PDF format. So I'm going to drag this into my folder over here, which I have. Then I'm going to rename it. I'm going to right click on it and rename it. I'm going to call it a comparative balance sheet. And then I'm going to open that up. and there's our comparative balance. And then if I wanted to print it from this format, I can print it from this format. If I wanted to give it to somebody else, I could give it to somebody else in that format. Now, remember, we're going to make other reports, so I also want to practice putting them into Excel and also practice that format of possibly putting multiple reports into one Excel file and then making a PDF file with the Qt PDF printer with it. So I can export it to Excel or I can export it to Google Sheets. So if you don't have Excel, you can do the same process with Google Sheets. Once again, it's going to open down below, which I kind of like because then I can simply drag that right into my folder where I want it to go. So there it is. I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to rename it and I'm going to call this balance sheet reports because I'm going to put more than one in there. And then if I was to open that up, if I was to open up this balance sheet report, it looks like this. Now notice it kind of puts it on this white background and whatnot. And when I copy and paste another report into it, it doesn't do quite the same thing. So I might just make another tab and copy this over to it. In other words, standard kind of formatting I might do is open up another tab. I might open up another tab and rename it, double click on it, and I'm going to call this comparative balance sheet. I'll shorten the name. Then I'll go back to the prior tab. I'm going to copy this whole thing by hitting the triangle up top, or you can hit Control A, get the whole thing, right click and copy it. And then if I go back to the second tab, I'm going to paste it here. You have to be in A1 or select the whole tab like this or Control A, because if I don't do it, for example, if I put it here and I try to paste it, first one, it won't let me do it because I don't have enough space because I selected the whole sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and select the whole sheet maybe like this and then paste it. And you can see the formatting is a little bit different here, right? There's the formatting's, a little bit different. If I go back over here, notice one of the things it did is it defaulted it to 150%. So if I go back over here and I bring this up to 150, then it looks more similar. Mainly it just took out the grid lines, right? This one, all they did was format the grid lines, and I kind of like having the grid lines if I want to change anything. So I'll typically put it in this format. Then when I save other worksheets to this, I'll save them here, and they'll all have those grid lines within them, and they should all be standardized. Once I put other worksheets in here, then I can use this form to then export to a PDF file and have multiple forms on one sheet. So our goal here is to kind of think about how are we going to give this information to somebody else. You always want to kind of think about that whenever working with these reports. Half the job is basically giving this to somebody else and saying, hey, I'm still here. Here's the work. I'm doing this. Sometimes they may not open that until year end, quarter end, when they really need it to make the tax returns or do something there, right? And so but you want to give the reports in the nicest way possible to be able for them to open it and look at it and just, so that's going to be all formatting types of things. So, and if you're emailing something, the question is, how can I email it to them in a way that's as nice as possible? So you can zip the file, you can put it in a PDF file, you can give it an Excel file, or you can use the Excel to make one PDF file. So we will practice doing that as we go. Also note that you do have the more formatting options once you have here. So for example, if you didn't want the date here, or if you wanted to change the date to December, this is for December, or November and December, you can change that. And again, almost pretty much everything else on, the headers up top and the header up top was all customizable within the system. This is the one thing which is easy to change in Excel if you export it to Excel that wasn't as customizable. Now, if you wanted to change any of the other number formatting and whatnot down here, obviously within Excel, you can make some more customized changes in that format as well.